And a 1, 2, 3.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Welcome back to episode 2 of the Spouting Devil podcast.
Spouting Devil. Natasha, co-host.
I'm Seamus Boyle, co-host.
We are a married couple of filmmakers. We live in New York City.
Yep.
And we just wanted to put together a podcast where we talk about our experiences as indie filmmakers and the movies that we're watching.
And talking with collaborators and having great guests. And today, on episode 2, we have a fantastic guest.
Our very near and dear friend, Bruce Walter Mitchell. He's a cinematographer. He is from California, currently based in Rhode Island, and he's just full of knowledge.
Yeah, powerhouse.
And we'll get into that very soon. We want to also throw out those disclaimers. We're not lawyers. We're not professional film critics.
Nope.
Take it all with a grain of salt. And we should get into what we watched, or rather rewatched this week.
Yes.
So we have been watching a lot of little things here and there, but in preparation for this episode, we rewatched Bardo by Alejandro Iñárritu. That one is screening on Netflix, and if you don't know, it was a film released in 2022, and it is just like one of those cinematic achievements that is just so special. It's just such a special piece of cinema.
Yeah, and it's obviously very personal to him, and it seems like he's been building up for a very long time to make this piece and share this piece, and it's really an incredible feat.
Yes.
It is one of those movies where you're immediately drawn in, and you're seeing a lot of things that you don't really see in terms of camera movement.
Very daring, forward.
It's mind-bendy.
Yes.
It's a lot of things, and it's deep. Yeah.
The costumes, the set dressing, the cinematography, above all, the acting. Oh my God. It was one of those movies that I was just like, why didn't it get more acclaim than it had? And a lot of people had said that like it was like self-serving or self-indulgent or something like that, and I'm like, isn't that kind of what film
the point
is? Like, you work through life's kinks. I don't know, but without telling too much about it, it follows the main character Silverio, who is played by, I have his name here, I want to make sure I say it right, Daniel Jimenez Cacho. And he is in the middle of kind of like a life crisis, and he's dealing with his public image changing. He has a background in journalism and then kind of goes into documentary filmmaking. He's from Mexico, currently lives in Los Angeles with his wife and his teen son. And the movie kind of just follows him during this period where you're not really sure if this is a dream, if it's real life, is it a memory? And he's kind of just dealing with the loss of a child and his Mexican cultural identity being contested in America, and then the reverse when he comes back home to Mexico. And that's a very rudimentary, pared down explanation of it, but
it's an incredible film. It has to be watched. I think it's one of those, it has to be watched.
Yes.
It's also something I want to search for is the script. I can only imagine. I can't really imagine how they kind of put that onto paper and then how it translates to what they put onto screen. So if I can find it, I'll put it in the link below.
But we should get into it because our guest is so awesome.
Yep.
And we're not just saying that because he's one of our besties, but he has a great bio. So I'm actually just gonna like cheat and read it. So much more than film school, it's been Bruce's years shooting and editing documentaries in San Francisco and Oakland that have shaped his unique perspective on the ways in which imagery and the contextual placement of images can impact and elevate a story. While most films rely heavily on exposition and barely make use of the audience, Bruce believes great films use precise imagery to communicate stakes, take risk, and challenge the audience to do some homework so that they can experience a world that they would not have imagined otherwise and leave changed as a result.
Yeah.
By seeking first to understand the world of the story rather than projecting the world as he sees it, Bruce's primary goal when approaching a new project is to let the true shape of the story emerge. Only then can the real fun can begin of bringing it to life on screen. And in the end, his telltale test of great cinematography is this: if you had to watch the whole thing on mute, would you not only know what was happening, but would you care? Bruce's body of work includes dozens of short films, as well as television pilots, music videos, international documentary series, and web and television commercials. His latest film with us, Archive and the Storyteller, has been featured in 17 domestic and international festivals, and he is currently working on a forthcoming documentary with us called Pa que tú lo sepas.
Awesome. And please welcome to the Spouting Devil podcast, our first guest, Bruce Mitchell.
Yeah, we're gonna switch over to Zoom now. All right, I'm gonna start recording.
Okay.
Yo, what's up?
My man.
Oh, nothing much, you know. Just
Bruce.
just living the dream.
Awesome.
Well, I'm gonna throw in a question that we didn't talk about before, since we're talking about Simone right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I feel like men don't get asked this question, but women get asked it all the time. What's it like balancing parenthood and being a filmmaker and like that hustle?
It's a very difficult balance to find, because like I think we've all known a lot of people who have families who are in the film industry who they either don't get to spend very much time with their family, or they're kind of half in, you know, and they're not like maybe like pursuing their career to their fullest. Anyways, my experience has been that because Simone was conceived, at least in the pandemic, and then the
Handy
fallout
baby.
from that. So it was like, yeah, but like, you know, that gave me an opportunity to really be present. Not to mention, like, you know, we had kind of moved coasts and we're like trying to figure out life here. So it was naturally a slower start. But now as like work is picking up and stuff like that, I'm like finding it difficult to accept the jobs that take me away for long lengths of time. I just don't really want to do that.
What's the time, like what's the length where you're like, no, too long?
Because I know mine, anything more than 6 months, and I'm like, I can't be away from him for more than 6 months.
Because
like,
I'm a
mine
baby.
is you're basically
I'm
Simone,
baby.
dude. Every time I see you, I'm like, you are my daughter, essentially. You guys are the same exact
33-year-old
person.
baby.
I'm sorry. I don't have any. I'm a little baby. I'm a baby.
Yeah. No, honestly, mine is like 2 weeks. It's
2 weeks.
so short. It's so short.
Yeah.
And it's like 2 weeks, and then I need to go home, or I need them to come to me. The latter's not really practical when she's trying to, like, you know, enjoy daycare, enjoy like friendships. We recently had like a play date from some random family at daycare for like the first time, and I was like,
Play
oh
dates,
wow, this
dude.
is how people do it. This is how people like make friends, and this is how people like build a community. I'm like, wow, okay, I guess this is how it works. And
don't be their friend more than you are our friend.
No, of course not. I would.
Okay.
I told them that straight up. I was like, guys,
like...
this is like a one-off deal.
I've already got great friends.
Yeah. I've got like
like,
4 friends. I cannot take on more.
No. Yo, I want to just piggyback off of the question about having a kid right now, right? How has it, if it did at all, impact your creative endeavors or changed you and how you see what you're doing with the art of film? You know, if that makes sense. Does that question make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think it's interesting because it also like curtails into this like just place that I'm at in my life, and Jess, my wife, is at in our lives, where we're just also trying to identify what this life is about. So it's like this. So it's like, first of all, I want to make sure I'm making content that I want my daughter to be able to see and enjoy, and also that's good for the planet and good for the world, and like, you know, good for humanity. And it just, you know, like as you guys know, like I've spent time, like a fair amount of time, like shooting commercials and doing things like that, where it's like, that shit's, God, you know, that's like not good for the planet. I'll tell you that much. You know, it's not good for humanity.
But good for the bills. Good for the
yeah,
bills.
good for the bills. And like,
Maybe not so much soul, but
yeah, and I'm like maybe being a little hard on it. Like not all of them are like, you know, burn the planet down, but becoming more aware of like the stuff that you put out there and the potential impacts it has on like people, which is like what our game is. Like this is what we do, is we try to get people to see something. And so, you know, I want to be more aware of that, and she's allowed me to prioritize maybe that lens a little bit more than I may have otherwise.
Oh, that's beautiful.
No pun intended.
Oh.
Boom.
Nice.
I
Making
also want to pick up on something that you said early on about moving coasts. So we know because we were tracking your trip, but tell everyone about that amazing journey that you went on, and then also how that influenced your artistic lens.
I think what you're referring to, because you're being coy, is so in 2018, my wife Jess and I know it's crazy, 5 years ago, we left on a bicycle trip from San Francisco, California, to all the way down to Argentina, with the intention of it only taking a year. And this was like this bucket list thing for me, and Jess kind of was interested in it, but you know, she's an instigator, and she's like hey, you know, if we can get sponsorship, let's do it sort of approach. And we got sponsorship, which was amazing and really cool, and I got to pursue that. And also just it happened to like relate it back to like that commercial life that I was living, which if you're in the Bay Area is going to like make up at least 50% of your work for the most part. I wasn't feeling super satisfied, and I was feeling like I was, especially in like advertising and like the corporate space, like you end up making films that are based on other films, if you will, like stylistically. You guys are like, oh, we saw this commercial, or we saw this ad, we really liked it, we would like to do that, but for Cheetos or whatever, you know. And so you end up like just being like, oh, okay, like I can make that for Cheetos, and I'll like swap this out and this out, but you're not really getting to that creative place. So that trip for me was, yes, it was about like achieving something kind of big, and something that was physically challenging, which has always been something I wanted to do, but it was also about like trying to find my own lens, and like really being aware of what I was looking at, how different light feels depending on where you're at. And like, man, I got to experience that. Like I really got to experience that. And so like, I'm so grateful for that. And then at the tail end of that, you know, we came back in February of 2020, which was the start of the pandemic.
So more than a year.
Welcome back to America.
Yeah, right. So it did take us essentially 2 years, like 22 months. Yeah, but then we got back to America, and with the intention of like, I was just feeling so invigorated. I was like, let's go make stuff. Like I got ideas, and like I had like people who were like wanting to work, and then of course it shut down. And so that all that work I had kind of lined up went away. And then now I've been out of the game for 2 years essentially. And then the pandemic, right? So then there's a year, and then we got married, and we had a kid. And so as this time started just absolutely flying, I ended up in this place of like not knowing where exactly to land. And I have like you guys who are like rocks for me in New York, and I got like it's not comparable. You guys are big rock, you know, like little rocks. There's little rocks on the West Coast also that like bring me out, you know, for work and stuff. I'm just kidding, little rocks. You're also big rocks. Everyone's big rocks.
Everybody's a big rock.
Yeah,
everyone's a big rock here. Nobody freak out. Yeah, but anyways, that was like a challenge to be stuck in that situation on the end of such a what was a very important experience for me, to then come back into a time where everyone was feeling the same sort of I don't know, like it was collective fear, it was collective frustration, and then it lasted for so long, right, that like anything I had achieved, if you will, by doing that like bike ride or having that kind of remarkable trip, kind of fell by the wayside. And it's just like I literally never talked about it. I think you guys are maybe one of the first people outside my family that I really talked to about it, which is a kind of a bizarre thing, because I thought it would be a great place to, you know, break the ice with people and open new conversations, and, you know, expand my opportunities for projects and that sort of thing. And it didn't have that impact, which was confusing. And remains confusing.
Yes. Because, okay, I just want to clarify that you actually wrote a pedal bicycle from San Francisco. I just want to make sure people understand this trip, because
I'll do a cool graphic.
if we can use pictures, that would be really cool, because
of course,
San Francisco to Argentina on a fucking bicycle with like massive packs, and you're not even your wife yet, and like that's a ride or die right
that's
there,
the biggest
Jess.
that's the biggest like win at the end of all of this, that we got engaged, which is kind of But
was there a place along the route where you were like, I have to shoot a movie here because this is like one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life? For me, that's Guatemala. What's it for you?
So in the way of things, it was every new place had that feeling. Every new place. And you spend so much time, like, you know, on average, we were on the bikes like maybe 10 to 12 hours a day. And you're not necessarily riding side by side. You're like, oftentimes they're kind of staggered. So you have a lot of time to think and be weird, and like, I mean, really weird, and come up with wacky ideas and play them out in your head. And I mean, so like literally every day I came up with a new idea. So it was a great time for just being in blue sky. What could we do here? I constantly kind of went back to, wouldn't it be cool, instead of like the road trip movie, but it'd be like a bicycle trip movie, you know, and you know, there's like remnants of like Motorcycle Diaries and that sort of thing. There's like all these sort of feelings. But then there's also like the documentary approach. There's so many phenomenal people in this world. I mean, phenomenal people who you just wouldn't see. Like I mean, I met some people that like, there's just no chance I could ever in a million billion years run into them again. You know, like this llama lady in Bolivia. Like we're at this like we were on the Altiplano, which is, you know, like maybe 15,000 feet or so. We're just about to descend. We're like on our final day in the Altiplano, and you just have huge swaths of open space, and the light is crystal. I mean, it's so like incredible. It's sharp, it's crisp, it's amazing, and it's very bright. And the people who live there, they live in these shacks, and they're very dark. Right, you walk inside, and the only light that's coming in is through the cracks in the boards, through the siding of the house. And because it does really, once you get used to it, it does provide plenty of light. But that contrast between that extreme brightness and that extreme darkness was fascinating. And then, so like we had seen one of these places, and then we'd carried on, and then you like meet the type of people who live in this environment. And I just remember this woman who was like, if I had to put an age on her, I would say 60, but in the way of like people who live, you know, following their animals around. She could have been 95, or she could have been 25. I have no idea how old she was. But just a beautiful person. And I just remember I stopped drinking water. I was taking a picture of an alpaca. I think it was an alpaca. And no, there was a llama. And I just hear her running, and I just hear this noise because there's a little bit of hills. And I just hear this llama, 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 yelling. I mean, just but like non-stop. Like she couldn't possibly be taking a breath. It was just, and I'm like, where is that coming from? And then finally she like, I saw her at a distance, and she came over, and then she was like, you took a photo of my llama? I was like, yes, you have beautiful llamas. And she was just like, that'll be like 10 pesos or something like that. And I was like, that's hilarious. I'm in the middle of nowhere and you're hustling me. And that's like to respect, have the 10 pesos.
Fuck
Absolutely.
yeah.
100%. Yep. You're right.
Okay, llama lady. Okay.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
they're yours. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Should have asked. You're right. Yeah, anyways, now I don't remember what your original question was, but I think it was like those sorts
You
of
answered
experiences
it.
that, all right, good. Yeah, those experiences definitely created some story ideas for future films, I think.
And we don't have to talk about it, but I always laugh at the sheep balls thing that you
let's
that you experienced.
no, it's
the short version of that story is when I was a kid, I wanted to be a gaucho. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, and then I became a gaucho.
And for people who don't know what a gaucho is, could you briefly explain what a gaucho is?
Yeah, it's essentially like well, in my case, it was like so it's like a ranch hand, or it's like a cowboy essentially, or at least that was my understanding as a kid, was that as a cowboy in like the farthest reaches of the planet, like, so in this case Patagonia, and so I was in Patagonia, and there was these gauchos, and they put us up for the night, and I was helping them with their sheep. And the short of it is, I don't want to be a gaucho anymore. That was a lot, and grateful for the experience, and also like that was a lot.
Okay, so segueing a little bit, so everybody has such a wildly different path to get to where they are, and I'm going a little bit out of order here, but I guess walk us through, like, little baby Bruce. What was the film that kind of inspired you?
Or films,
or films,
whatever, and
plural.
It's not ranked or whatever, but if you can remember, like, I don't know, the films that really impacted you to be like, you know what, I think I want to get into this journey.
I saw you guys sent me that question, right? And so I thought about that for a second, and the truth of it is, like, when I was young, I enjoyed movies. I loved going to the movies with like my dad, he loved Will Ferrell movies, and we would go and we would just laugh our asses off. It was just a great time. He's a great laugh, so you could just laugh at him. But I don't know if there was like a specific movie that I saw and was like, wow, I want to do this. But what I will say is, the first time I made a movie, which was in high school, I was maybe like, I don't know, that would have maybe been like sophomore year of high school or something like that. My friends and I, this was like MySpace in that time, right? So like people would put videos. I was like, right. So like I just remember my friends getting together and making a stupid movie. I can't tell you what it was about. It was just us making films, or making a film. And I just remember like immediately being able to see how it went together, which my friends couldn't do. Like, they couldn't see it. Like, they couldn't see how the cuts would work. And so they'd be like, oh, we should shoot this. And I'd be like, but how does that cut? Like, I don't understand. And so it was very natural for me. It just felt very natural. And that's one of the few things that in my life that have came naturally, where I was just like, wow, this is actually, I think I'm actually kind of good at this, or I think I have a skill here, and I suddenly was aware of it. And then you kind of think back from that place, you start thinking about, why does it seem like so much fun? Like when you watch a movie, and you start like exploring what that life is like. And especially at that age, when you are thinking about college and you're thinking about that sort of thing. And that for me was like the start where I was like, I like this, actually, I'm good at this. And I remember like the next week I went into, actually this might've been junior year, but I went into we had like a television program where you guys maybe had this too, where you'd make like video announcements every week, and you'd have like little skits and stuff like that. Yeah.
You went to like a proper high school, like the high school in the movies.
Yeah.
We're city sewer rats.
Yeah. Public school city rats. So,
I didn't say it. But
it was
what you are. You know what you are. Yeah. No, but it was a really cool program in which like they provided cameras, and they were like, all right, we're gonna give 10 minutes. You're going to make a 10-minute like film essentially with like the news of the day, and then like the SAT word of the week, which was my segment. And it was essentially like, here's a word, make a skit so that we understand what the word means. That was what it was, right?
Oh, cool.
Wow, I'm like, I've forgotten about this. This is kind of cool. I'm like, suddenly it's all coming back.
Oh, so
The itch.
Yeah, but I just remember like, okay, having this experience with my friends, right? And then being like, man, I really like this. I want to do this. Or I think like I want to pursue this. I want to. And so I went into this class, which had like 8 people only, and it had like all these kids had to go to summer school and had like to have 2 years of experience to be in this class, to do this news segment. And I walked in and I was like, yeah, like I deserve to be here.
Yeah.
Gonna fuck shit up.
There's no reason, but I just had like this ego about me when it came to this. I to this day, I'm like, I would take an ounce of that ego at this point in my career. but I just remember that, and I like bulldozed my way into the class, and I had such a great time. And it was that was like, yeah, definitely the like turning point where I was like, this is it. This is what I'm gonna try and do.
it's almost like you explained what love is. It's like this like innate, like I don't know why, but this is just what it is. And that can be for a person, a place, a career. And that's really beautiful, because I feel like I can't remember a specific moment like that, but I know that every time that we are on set, I feel that, and I feel like this is what I have to chase for the rest of my life.
Yeah. It's an itch. It's like this adrenaline thing. It's also for me it's like a weird like challenge that I just love facing, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna get it together, but I'm gonna do it. And I just keep putting myself back in that situation, and I love it though.
Yeah.
Was there like a film for you guys that are individually that like was like, this is what I want to do, or was it something?
I have always loved movies, and I talked about this on the last episode, but coming from where I came from, my background, I never knew that was like a career that I could actually like aspire to. But I have always loved movies. I've always been a like avid reader, and always kind of like lived in this imaginary world in my head of like making up characters for people that I see in the street, and like kind of just like a nosy, precocious little kid. So I think I was just always really into stories. I just didn't know that meant film. But the film, I think, that completely changed my life was The Wizard of Oz, because I was just like, oh my God, this girl is me. I'm Dorothy. I'm in the black and white world, but then I make up this colorful world to like make sense of things that I'm going through, and it's magical. And Wizard of Oz for me. Long story short.
I think for myself, I got into the acting world pretty young, and like it started off with singing, and then I got into like plays and stuff like that. And
how old were you as a child actor?
I think I really started when I was like 12. But my dad like loved movies, and like that's just what we did. That was a big way that we connected and related. And I think I just wanted to be the idol that my dad watched. I think that's like the mommy and daddy thing in me. I wanted to be the lead. I wanted my parents to see me on those things and look up to me. Paul Newman, Tom Hanks, old school Yul Brynner, and all those guys. And I just loved, I would see like really intense scenes. Like I watched like inappropriately mature movies as a young kid, but I do remember like I watched Saving Private Ryan, and I remember reenacting scenes as a kid by myself, and I just remember I loved exploring different ways to feel emotions that I didn't know how to kind of comprehend as a kid, and I never stopped. And it was like exploring the inner human emotional experience, and it hasn't stopped, that itch, that longing.
And
Yeah, that's
hopefully
awesome.
it never will. And
no.
we will
There's
just
no
be
reason for it
three
to.
little old
Yeah.
people just making movies
Yep.
together. And
Yeah.
yeah. What are you watching right now?
Oh yeah. Watch
Well,
anything?
I watched Bardo.
Yeah.
Watch
yeah.
Yeah.
Bardo.
What do you
Yeah,
think? What do you think?
Bardo is pretty awesome.
Right?
It's pretty awesome. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's like one of those films where I just can't imagine pitching that movie.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying? It's so complex.
But then again, when you were telling me the idea, the last time you were here and we were hanging out on the couch, and you were telling me the idea that you had about your life and combining it with your trip, immediately I was like, oh, that sounds just like Bardo.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that relationship. Although I do tend to not go to like the fantastic side of
Sorry, yeah,
filmmaking.
that's my go-to.
No, but that doesn't mean that there's not like a nice blend there, because I can see it. It's interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna noodle on that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Cinematography wise, what was it about Bardo that impressed you, if anything?
I mean, okay, so at the, you know, if you just peel it all back to how complicated, how many people are involved, you know, again, to pitch the idea of some of these camera movements and then the blocking of them and how all of that has to come together, you know, obviously assuming that a lot of it was done in camera, right? That is a very, I mean, you know, we recently did some Steadicam work, right? And it was complicated, to say the least, right? And so just imagine that like maybe like 100x of what we did, you know, for some of that stuff. Like I'm thinking about the scene where he goes, it's pretty early when he goes into the television station.
Yep.
And there's like this oneer, and it's probably not a oneer, it's probably several shots, but like all of that has to, even if it is several shots, like all of it has to be cohesive, and it is. And it's
how do
just
I stitch
really,
this together?
Yeah, and that's kind of from like the like practical side of it, or like the, yeah, I guess the practical side of it. But then there's just like the what that does for the audience, like the voyeur element of it, this like this just like this feeling that you're like in a memory, or that you're in like a, you know, you're like an out-of-body experience, like those sorts of things. It really makes you feel that way. So it was totally the right choice, I think, to do that. And I'm always in awe when somebody takes on like a shot list as challenging as that, or set design as challenging as that. I just like to have the like the forethought to see how it all comes together, and then be confident that you can execute on it is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And so like I think at some point you're going to ask me about cinematographers that I respect.
That was next.
Yeah, that's the next.
Anybody who like gets to that point where they are like, they can see how it all fits, that's an incredibly difficult place to get to. And there's not a lot of people that can do it repeatedly with success every time. And there's a handful of cinematographers that do that. Yeah. So I just thought it was a fantastic film, a lovely exploration into like some pretty like
intense stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And like important, like it really resonates with me today. And so like it was really nice to kind of see some of that voiced, if you will.
I'm so glad you watched it. Is there anything else that you're watching?
Let's see. Not really, to be honest. I haven't been in a like a movie or television mode. I've been reading a lot.
Oh, what are you reading?
I'm finishing a book right now called The Attention Fix.
Okay.
And it's just about, you know, if anyone out there is like struggling with how their brain is working and why like sometimes you can't just keep it focused, and this doesn't exactly resolve that problem, but it like it helps at least articulate why that could be happening and why it doesn't.
Attention Fix. I'm writing that down.
Yeah, it's a good read. It's a good read. It's worth it.
Nice.
Should we get into the favorite cinematographers?
Well, we kind of answered it,
we
right?
did? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want a name.
If one of y'all
says some silly ass name, this whole class is gonna feel my wrath.
If I have to give you a name, this is like kind of the classic film school name, but I would definitely say Deacon.
That's a fair
Awesome.
one.
We'll
And
take it.
he has a great podcast. I know we're not supposed to promote other podcasts on this podcast, but his podcast is great. Anyway, do you have a favorite job so far?
I would have to break it into like two different camps because I do a lot of documentaries too, right?
Yeah.
Documentaries are always really kind of fun and interesting, and sometimes shooting can just be a blast, you know, and you can get some amazing footage. And the stories can be like, you can't write some of these stories that people have, you know. That's kind of the really cool thing about documentaries. And so so far the documentary that I'm thinking of is one called The Night Shift, that I made with you guys know Max. I made with him, and it's just about this guy in his life, and he's one of those guys that go out at like midnight and collect recycling, and they bring it to the recycling facility. But takes place in San Francisco, and what was amazing and what I didn't expect was that there's just this underground world of recycling that has like bulk buyers. So like he goes around with his shopping cart and he collects recycling, and he's got his stops. Like he goes to the restaurants, he's friendly with them. It all works out right. And then he sells because he doesn't want to wait till the recycling place is open at 7 a.m. or whatever it was. He's got to move his product, if you will, to a like larger distributor, or not distributor, sorry, like collector, who's got like one of those trucks with like the plywood, you know, this huge plywood built out backs, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And so he sells to them for a fraction of what he would get at the, you know, and it's just like, the world is incredible. It's like it's an economy that like we never think about, we never talk about. And that was one of those things where I was just like, this is blowing my mind that this exists. And Angelo, the protagonist, is just like the most wonderful person, such a lovely guy, and he's caught in that cycle. Yeah, I haven't talked to him in forever, so I hope he's doing well.
Right.
That was a really cool documentary. You guys threw me into one that was really fun, the narrative one, the archive.
Hi, and welcome to the archive.
That was intense, and that was a lot of fun. And that was like the first time we worked together, I think, as a DP director team, right?
Right, because we did work together before editor, and then just like be friends. But
yes, exactly. And what I really appreciated about that was that you guys had a lot of trust in what I could deliver. But that was just a wild ride. I had so much fun doing that, and it was intense.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, I was like, that was good. That was a good time.
Awesome.
You know?
Awesome.
And I think the film's really sweet.
It's the little short
I love
it.
I love it.
I love it.
Fucking movie.
That is pretty cool.
Again?
What's your dream camera package if you could just have it all?
And I'm sure it's subjective to project.
Right,
but
sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. What
do you want to play with?
I was like, what are we shooting? Like, what's the story? Like, it doesn't, like, to me, like, I guess, okay, so I feel like your question is more like, if I'm an owner and operator and I like wanted to have the best gear that I had available, which I think is what you're asking, I would probably always default to an Alexa, probably the Mini, because it's just so nice to use. And if like, you know, boy, lenses are so hard. They just are so hard. But I do want to like say that it doesn't, like, for me, your camera's fine. Like the Blackmagic cameras are honestly good.
We
like,
love it. We love it.
But the image quality that you get is good. It's like really solid. Like, I mean, I've always been happy with the stuff that we've shot. The downside to that camera is how it's built. You know, it's got this like fold out, you know, it's not built necessarily for the professional world. Whereas like the Alexas and, you know, your Sonys, like your Venice or whatever, which I've shot on a number of times and have liked, they're beasts. You could push them off a cliff and they'd be fine, and they're easy to build out, they're well thought out. Yeah, I don't know, lenses are one of those other ones where like they're so project specific. If I had to choose, I would probably choose some Cook, maybe S4s probably.
Awesome.
Maybe some minis just to keep them small. I mean, I'm not like, when I get to that level of like high-end cameras, high-end glass, I don't know what I would use consistently, because I feel like it's one of those things, once you have it, you don't want to use it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just feel like that's always how it is.
If you weren't a filmmaker,
Oh yeah,
what would you do?
I'd be a furniture maker.
This is what I did last night.
I enjoy those, like, the types of pieces that like people really look at closely, like those furniture pieces are like, whoa, like let me look at that, like little.
What would you do if you weren't a filmmaker?
Can I guess?
Yes.
Yeah, please, yeah.
You would be a fisherman for sure.
Yeah. I would love to be a fisherman.
I was gonna say chef.
A chef. Yep.
Really?
He's a fantastic cook, and he does well in that like pressure. Like, yes, chef.
I'm gonna get roasted at the firehouse for this segment. He's like, not me.
What's that? What is that
I think I would really love to be a Formula One race car driver.
Yeah, you can totally do that.
Yeah, I would love that.
What is your problem, man? Do you know how to fucking drive? No.
I remember too, when I was a young kid, I saw, what was it? Black Stallion.
Hell yeah.
And I wanted to be a jockey as a kid. That was a long time dream. And then I remember my mom, or it was my dad, was like, dude, you're like 6'4", man. You're never going to be a jockey. You'll be the tallest jockey on planet Earth. So then I was like, all right, I guess I'll stick with the acting and film stuff.
Nice.
Next question. Hard, no easy, smooth segue. We're going right to the next question. We're fucking done with that other stuff. What are you working on now? And where can we follow your journey? This is like the plug.
Plug Ash.
Just brucemitchellfilms.com.
We will put it in the description below.
I have one thing that I have going on is I was supposed to do this thing for Charlie Munger. Do you know who that is?
That sounds really familiar.
Is that a San Francisco dude?
No, it's Berkshire Hathaway. So like you want to billionaires.
Did he just pass away?
Yes, so I was gonna do this like 100, because he was about to turn 100, and so there was like this film that they wanted for his life, and that changed like a couple days ago when he passed away. So that was the next thing I had on the books after we worked together this weekend, and that's kind of on hold. So we'll see what happens with that. Yeah.
And what do you do? This is the second to last question. What do you like read or constantly refer to like keep like the
websites or things that you keep yourself up to date on the film world?
I have a bunch of like books that I like will review, especially before a shoot, like anything from like, I think it's the set lighting technician handbook or something like that, which is
set lighting.
There's just like a number of books I have like that have been useful to me over the years that I'll be like, first of all, they're not the kind of book you read in one go. They're dense, and so you like want to pick it apart, and before a project I'll like flip through them and just try to like jog my memory and maybe try to learn a little something before. But then I do like watching, for a long time Ari had these like lighting demos, and so it'd be like an hour long, maybe 2 hour long, like lighting demo from a cinematographer who would be brought in, and he would just like set up a scene. Always found that so fascinating, because there are a million ways to light a scene, and just to watch them do that.
And that's on their website?
I think it's on their website. I can also like try to find these things, and so you guys
we'll try to share.
Those are super useful. And even like honestly, sometimes like I'll get on a feed or something like that, or somebody will send me a video of somebody doing maybe even like just teaching a lighting set up, and like the reality is like maybe I know 99% of it, or maybe I disagree with it, but there's like a nugget of something that's interesting. I'm like, oh well, I didn't think about that.
Isn't that
You know,
life?
like
There's
like
always a
I'll just give you
nugget.
totally, and I'll give you an example, like a quick one, which is like, you're pushing like an HMI through a window, so you're pushing a light through a window to give you some daylight coming in, right? Well, what this person suggested was putting a 4x Kino, like kind of face down. I'm not sure if my hands in. So if we're pushing in this way, this is the light's coming in this way, the window's here, you put it right here, so you get this like downward, this down angle, what is it called? It's like a down fill, and it really creates a very different feel to the window that is very natural. It just feels, because that's the thing about sunlight, it's a hard light, it's very direct.
Oh my
at times.
God. Yeah.
And yet this seemed to kind of diffuse that, but in a very kind of elegant way. And it's a very simple thing. I just never thought about that, because normally you kind of push through, you diffuse with your put, and this was just like you add an extra light, and it definitely gave me a new way of looking at lighting naturalistic windows. So that kind of thing you just find. I don't exactly know how you find it, but
That's
you just
great.
do. One of the other things is to, like, it's one thing to watch somebody do it, or it's one thing for somebody to describe it to you, right? It's another thing to actually do it yourself. And that's the cinematographer's challenge, right? Is like, there's no like plan. They read the words and they have to come up with something that
So cool.
feels right. And so you're never going to get to do that. Like, you're never going to get from this, the lighting set technician, whatever that book is, reading that book to feeling confident and like knowing what you're going to get out of it without trying it. And so the more you get your hands on it, the better. And so like, I'm, just to kind of keep me busy, I'm taking a class in New York, a lighting class.
Nice.
Just to keep me just learning things. And I might learn nothing from it. I might learn absolutely nothing. It might be dog shit.
The nugget. Dog shit.
But it also, like, there could be something. There could be the nugget.
The nuggets.
Yeah. Or just, again, handling lights, handling cameras. You always have an opportunity to learn something.
We're finding that people who are in like mid or entry level are gravitating towards this. So
Okay.
yeah, if you could say anything to them,
or aspiring young people who want to get into cinematography or whatever, any tidbits and any nuggets.
Nugget
more
section.
nuggets.
We're gonna call it the
nuggets
section.
Yeah. I mean, if the goal is to be a cinematographer, I think figuring out how to develop a look is the serious challenge, because like, we spend a lot of time looking at reference images, or like, that sort of thing, or even storyboarding. But to develop a look, and I mean this through lighting, through camera selection, through lens selection, through your LUTs, all that stuff, right? Developing it devoid of influence is really hard, and very cheap to practice. Just like, let your mind. So like, for example, right, you watch a movie, right? You watch the movie, and then you go back and you read the script, right? And it's easy for you to be like, oh, I can see how they made those lighting choices, right? Because you've already seen the end product.
Right.
But if you can start at the place of like, you don't know how they, like, not how they did it, but like why they made the choices they made. And you allow yourself to like answer those questions of like why they're important and how you would do it. And then let yourself watch it, right? And then you can see what the choices were made and then you can learn from that experience, right? But if you don't give yourself the room to develop your own voice, you're gonna fall into a pattern that I fell into earlier in my career, which I told you guys about, which, just feeling like I wasn't shooting my own things. I was shooting, I was shooting things that people had made in the past, and I was now replicating. So, give yourself the space to find out how you would do it. without anybody telling that, without looking at anything. Just give yourself the freedom to come up with a plan. They can all be in your head. I mean, write some things down if you can, and then you know, watch the outcome as the actual cinematographer did it, and you might learn something.
Awesome.
I love that, like that
Awesome.
breakdown, teach yourself,
Yeah,
be analytical. That's really cool.
it's amazing.
That's a good one.
Yeah, but I do think, just to hammer this in one more time, starting with having like watched a movie and then going back to the script and thinking how you would do it, it's a recipe for you just to like constantly reference, right? Or break down how they did it and assign like why they did it. But you have to come up with the why. The why is the hard part, you know. The motivation for the lighting is the hard part. The motivation for the camera movement is the hard part. So, you know, you have to do that work, and it's free. You can just do it in your head, you know, read a script. You can just, you guys know about free scripts, right? You could probably put a link to like
Yeah.
finding scripts and read it, try to come up with how you would do it, and then watch the film if you've never seen it. That's
I
it.
love
great.
that. I love
That's
that.
perfect.
That's a good nugget.
Bruce,
Nugget.
man,
Nuggets.
thank you for being on the show, on the podcast,
yeah.
on the Spouting Devil.
Did you have fun?
I did have, well, I mean, I'm hanging out with you guys. It just
Yeah.
feels like we're kicking it. So it's,
Sure,
I
we're
had a
kicking
good
it.
time.
Great.
We're kicking it.
Yeah, we're gonna see you in a
Couple
few
hours.
hours, man. We're gonna get back in the
Yeah,
grind.
yeah, I
Get back in the grind.
pack up some things. After this, we should talk about some gear I'm gonna bring. So it's
Yeah.
just,
So we're gonna cut it here.
Mhm.
Thanks for watching. I'm gonna stop recording.
thanks
1
everyone.
second.
All right. We are back out of Zoom. Thank you to our
Thank you so much
our
for watching.
broski Bruce.
Yeah.
And we got a really cool question from Jacob Ramsey in
Yep.
Prague, no
Yep.
less.
Yep.
And he asked, how do you navigate artistic collaboration with your life partner? And it's actually
Easy.
something that
Very easy.
it's something that we get asked a lot, as I'm sure a lot of couples who work so closely together do. So take it away.
Yeah, we've gotten really good, I think, at like communicating and learning how to take notes and receive notes, and we each give notes and receive notes in different ways.
Very different ways,
which has taken years to learn, and we're still learning how to get better at that.
Yeah, and you know, there's so many awesome powerhouse couples out there that that you can look to for inspiration, like you know, Amy Sherman Palladino and Dan Palladino, who I've worked for. They have a great working relationship. Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck, and Maya Rudolph and Paul Thomas Anderson, Greta
Jay-Z
Gerwig.
and Beyonce.
Different medium, but yes. Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach.
Yep.
Collaborating together has made us stronger partners, and being partners has made us stronger collaborators.
And stronger individuals as well.
Absolutely. And just like, we are so wildly different. I'm really into fantasy and magic, and I feel like you're more rooted in reality.
And gritty, a little bit of the darker stuff, yeah.
Exactly. So it's like, how do you balance those two things together?
And we also come from different worlds in
Oh,
terms
yeah,
of film, right?
totally.
You're coming from more behind the camera world, and I started out more in front of the camera.
Exactly.
And I've slowly worked my way to learning the bigger stuff that happens behind the camera. And so we're coming at things from a different angle, where I think it would be very different if we were both in the same exact field, like if we were both actors, or if we were both only directors
There's
or
like
writers.
zero competition whatsoever.
Yeah, and
which I'm super thankful for.
Yeah, it's all about like, how do we make this better, and how do we just work together better as a team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm always just like, oh my God, I have this amazing idea. Let me call him and see if it's crap or if I'm remembering it from something else, because no idea is actually original. And then we just like bounce things off of each other. So I guess that was a long roundabout, hopefully, answer to that question.
Yeah.
But Thank you guys so much for watching.
Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you to Bruce for being our first guest, which means a lot to us because we've been friends for so many years.
Yep.
And our next guest for episode 3, we're going to be talking about screenwriting and writing support staff. And our next guest is Alex Rubin.
So excited.
And she's dope.
Awesome.
So check us out, YouTube, Cinematographer, Spotify. Reach out, and we hope to keep chatting with you.
Awesome. See you guys next time.
Bye.